Both guilt and shame, either singly or as partners, can often be experienced as never-ending punishments for very human errors that, in fact, anyone at any time might make, but these emotions are so personal, one can be made to feel by others or ourselves, no longer even worthy of the warmth and glad acceptance of humanity, psychologically cut off to some degree, yet condemned to carry on within this cruel and never-ending story in a way we understand should never be. But a just and proper ending to this story can be found, and it's closer than you think, because the words that you are listening to have now arrived at just the place. You must make your choice between retaining guilt and shame, or deciding to accept what must be true, that all things have their ending. And so this is an open invitation to live again as others do, just as you did before the time when you were labeled and your life was set in stone, when things could change, when life was fully flexible, when you were still included, when you didn't feel alone. Please close your eyes and let your breathing be the way you enter peace. Yes, please. Kindly place your focus now exclusively upon the feeling of the flow of this very breath you're breathing now. Just how this feels right now, no more than this. To breathe in easy, gentle fashion, just following this breath, this flow, this softly pleasant, fond, familiar rhythm, the way you know transports you to your safe and quiet space, this place below, unseen and far beyond perception by another, where only you can go to be at peace, a deeper, private, personal state of being, where all remaining inner chatter fades into a whisper, until all known words have gone. A warm and wordless, timeless world of ever deeper breathing, where being deepens, widens, opens, and senses long forgotten dreams, in which a way is found a way to see things differently, another path that leads directly on towards the ending of your story is becoming more apparent now. And you notice that this path, this route, this way is made of easy breathing, as breathing just the way you are right now can only bring this ending ever closer, and naturally so. So, no hurry, no rush, no stress, no worry, no further expectations of you now, as how you breathe is quite enough for all you need, and all being as this is, so simple and so effortless, an automatic change of speed, emotion and direction, turning inwards, breathing softly in towards the central, quiet witness state, that part of you that you once knew as being all of you, before you knew yourself as you do now, allows you to remember that there still remains a tiny part of you that knows this story has a final twist, expecting something unexpected, ready for surprise, just like in dreams when all seems lost, then suddenly you realize an exit does exist. You see the light of hope appear. A few more steps, step up this pace, you're nearly there. You make the leap, escaping now your deepest fear. You fall right into blissfulness, pure, delightful weightlessness, remembering from ages past that heaven waits in unself-conscious consciousness. So, let's slip all feeling physical. The world dissolves. All time is now. Perspective shifts. The universe works with you now. Look down below. You see the path that leads you cleanly out of this. Starts darkly, yes, but take heart, for shortly after, all shall be revealed. You walk along a difficult and troubled road, your cloak of shame, an ancient weight upon your shoulders, double burdened by the dark and heavy box of guilt, the load you have to carry all alone, awkward, angled, painful, feeling older than the world itself. Yet, as you walk, you may begin to sense a friendly presence walking with you by your side, supportive, loving feeling of another's understanding of your plight, a friendly presence from before, an untold length of time ago, a trusted one with fellow feeling, a fond, familiar human being close enough to feel that you can look into your depth of shame and guilt again in such a way that certainties are questioned now. You open up, you tell your tale, relating all the details of the never-ending upset that you carry with you on this endless path of woe, by telling tales about yourself, your life, your worth, and all the things you know about the way you feel today. I should feel this. It is deserved. I did this. This is the truth. Please don't just say it isn't. The friendly presence stops you now, looks deep within your eyes with loving warmth, acceptance, understanding, and you realize your friendly presence has a gift to give, and what that present is this. What you say may be the truth, but even if that's so, it's only half the truth, and you already know that half the truth can never be enough to see things fully, clearly, truly how they're meant to be, the way that we should always see things when we need to see things properly. The pain you feel is human and quite natural, and yet there's something you've not understood because you've been misled about the nature of your being. Fear and expectation of achieving quite impossible demands have left you blind and bound, believing that release from this could never come, that emancipation would never be found. But here, today, right now, the ending of your story is at hand. Judgment Day is here now, and you stand waiting at the door of this, your court of judgment. Your guilt, the heavy package that you carry, your shame, a heavy-weighted cloak, dark across your shoulders, almost too heavy to bear. But you know you must carry all of this just a little further. This package of woe, this bundle of upset, dull negativity, your very own conviction that your qualities are few and your crimes are far too many. Today is the day. This is the hour. The minute now approaches. Seconds only until all the world will see your soul for what it is, to judge you on your person, your own self, your actions, and your failure in becoming a fully perfect human being. You are asked to take a step forward, to prepare yourself to enter the court. But wait, this ceremony pauses here as the official who grants entry to the court looks up from checking paperwork with a concerned expression and informs you of an unexpected problem, a discrepancy between the number of actions you have performed in your life and the number of actions currently listed on your performance sheet of living. A clearly sincere apology is made to you, gracious and polite, and in this situation, it seems to you unthinkable not to accept this apology, and so you do. The official's face softens in relief, the face going on to explain that since you yourself are about to be judged, there is insufficient time to return to the world to perform that last necessary action which would complete your performance sheet. And so, your final action, before being judged yourself, will be to sit on the jury of another person, if you are willing so to do. You feel there is little choice, and so you agree, and are now shown towards a short passageway to the right, through a surprisingly low doorway. You have to stoop to avoid banging your head, crawling along a very low and narrow corridor. Your cloak of shame drags on your shoulders, your burden of guilt seeming ever heavier, until at last another door now opens, and you enter the court of judgment itself. Another official immediately appears and whispers into your ear, "Since this is your very last action before your own judgment takes place, I advise you to be honest, true, and fair-minded." The official smiles at you kindly, instructing you to sit on the bench with the rest of the jury. 11 other souls whose eyes meet yours as you take your seat alongside. You feel the heavy weight of your burden, your fears and your worries, your guilt and your shame, your box of wool upon your lap. Noticing now your fellow jurors, each with their own personal box of wool on theirs, each wearing their own cloak of shame in their own personal shade, and each looks as uncomfortable as you feel. You look around and see that down there, in the dock of the court, surrounded by court officials and facing the judge, stands the accused, head bent down, directly facing the floor with the weight of the world of self-condemnation. You feel profoundly for this poor person, a deep identity, feeling their feelings, imagining now just how it is to stand in their place. Looking up, you see the judge looking down impassively. Across the court, there sit the public in the Gawker's gallery. Every face you ever knew, and all of those you've not yet met. The case begins immediately. The prosecutor stands, and the first damning accusation made is that the accused has led an imperfect life. A detailed list of failures follow: personal, public, private, social sins and misdemeanors of every type in every flavor, all described as verging on a crime against humanity, and in the flowery legalese of this demented prosecutor, worthy of contempt at best, and at worst some eternally terrible punishment. And as each damning accusation ricochets around the court, the person in the dock seems to physically wilt and shrink. You are taken aback by the cruelty, by the unfeeling prosecutor's callous onslaught, for even although these are only words, their effect is severely damaging. Your heart sinks. You look at the faces of the other jurors to see if they are similarly affected, and yes, all seem appalled, nervously glancing each at their own box of woes, no doubt presuming they too will be savaged when their turn comes. You feel the cold embrace of your cloak of shame and the heavy weight of your own box upon your knees, whilst in your mind you are aware of the prosecutor continuing to list and to describe the immoral, decadent thoughts, the behavior and the actions of the accused, who now, no longer able to stand, lies in a crumpled heap upon the floor, having abandoned all hope, waiting now only for this to be over, for their case to be settled, their verdict arrived at, their punishment given, but still the list goes on. Selfishness, impatience, cold-heartedness, selected, detailed instances, one or two in particular, several acts of lust, greed, and anger, and on it goes. An endless list of failures, of errors, social crimes, mistakes, until at last you hear the prosecutor sum up their case, urging the jury to find the defendant guilty of the charge of being a clearly and obviously imperfect human being, of living an imperfect human life. The prosecutor stands down. And now the defendant's lawyer stands and begins the defense. You look at their face, and you find that you cannot define it, as it doesn't seem to be fixed. Their features seem to constantly change. The voice too, even the colour of their skin and hair, all seem to be in flux. Yet, when the lawyer speaks, the words themselves are sharp, distinct, and clearly understandable, precisely articulating the defendant's natural innocence. These charges, these accusations, this entire list of supposed failure after failure after failure amounts to no more than a description of someone bravely attempting to carry out a clearly impossible task, of someone who, even whilst knowing that their task is impossible, nevertheless carries on trying, day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year. Someone who can never give up, someone who continues to try to do their very best to achieve what we all know is quite impossible, to live an unstained life. The defense now calls an expert witness, a prominent, well-known psychologist, to the stand. When was it exactly? And I'd like the precise time and the date, please. That the defendant consciously chose to become a human being and to live their life here on planet Earth. Well, there was no such time, replies the expert witness psychologist. The defendant will have had no choice in the matter. No one makes that decision. It isn't a choice that anyone is given. I see, then, at what stage in life was the defendant given their personal copy of the How to Be the Perfect Human Being manual? And was the defendant given sufficient time to read this and the appropriate assistance required to understand its contents and to put all of this into practice? The expert witness replies, there is no such manual. It doesn't exist. The defense then asks, was the defendant fully and clearly informed of the challenges? Was the defendant given a detailed list of the difficult situations and the intractable problems with which they would be presented whilst living their life? The expert witness replies, I do not believe such could ever be possible. One cannot tell the future. No one can tell the future. There never has been any person able to do this. There never could be. I see. Then, did the defendant suffer any pressures to act imperfectly, to stray from the path of perfection, so to speak? The expert witness replies, Why, yes, obviously. The defendant is, of course, a human being, and built into the very nature of every human being is the survival mechanism as a biological necessity. The defense then asks, I see, and how is this survival mechanism, this biological necessity, as you put it, how is this experienced in the life of the defendant? The expert witness replies, well, it manifests in the experience of the defendant in the same way that it does in the life of every human being who ever lived. In each and every situation in which a human being finds itself, there is an automatic urge to act in such a way that benefits its own self, a pressure to act selfishly, to cater for its own needs. This is the built-in survival mechanism without which humanity would have died out a very long time ago. In order to act kindly, to act thoughtfully, fairly, and selflessly, each human being must make great efforts to overcome or override these urges, and each human also needs great support to do so. As a human being myself, I can tell you this is a never-ending effort, like being permanently in a tug-of-war with oneself, and the pressure rarely lets up for long. I see, the defense lawyer says, and then asks, and you say that this situation is the experience of every human being? The expert witness replies, absolutely. Every single one of us who ever lived. There are no exceptions. It's the human experience. It's, well, I don't know how else to put this other than to say it's human nature. And this is widely accepted. We even have the phrase, to err is human. To the extent, in fact, that any other type of behavior would be seen as unnatural, as it would stand out. There are no human beings who live perfect lives, and there never will be, there never were, other than perhaps such figures as Jesus or Buddha and the like, if they ever existed, and if they did, they were regarded as individuals who had personal qualities to which we might hope to aspire, but to which no one could ever be expected to match in reality. The defense asks, and you say that this applies to all of us? The expert witness replies, yes, of course, to each and every one of us, and so, if I may say it also applies to you and to me. The witness pauses for a second before going on to add, it therefore also applies to the prosecutor. A silence descends on the court, and all eyes alight on the face of the prosecutor, which turns bright red in obvious and acute embarrassment, a frisson of panic flitting across their features, coupled with a sudden and overwhelming interest in the appearance of their own shoes. Clearly, even this prosecutor knows in their heart of hearts that all of what this witness says is true. The defense asks, so what you're saying is that in life it is quite normal to make mistakes and errors of all kinds. Mistakes and errors, both big and small. The expert witness replies, yes, absolutely normal. In fact, I'd go as far as to say that it is expected, indeed necessary, for a person to make mistakes both big and small throughout their lives. Necessary, you say? Asks the defense. The expert witness replies, why yes, of course. Life as a whole is no different in nature to any one part of it. And unless one makes mistakes and errors, one cannot be expected to learn and to grow. It is only through making mistakes that we learn how to do things better. And because of this, we never stop learning and are helpfully reminded that no one, absolutely no one, ever becomes the perfect human being. I see, says the defense. And the witness says, and if I may add, yes, asks the defense. There is another crucial benefit in accepting that everyone does make mistakes. There is an enormous benefit to society as a whole when we make mistakes ourselves and are able to accept that this is normal, because it means, therefore, that we are then not only able to understand and accept others' frailties and imperfections, but it also allows us to forgive them for their failures, their errors, their mistakes, in seeing and understanding the truth that getting things wrong is never anything other than the unavoidable reality of learning how to live within a mature, understanding, mutually accepting society as a normal human being. And when you see the truth of this, you are duty-bound by simple logic also to, therefore, allow forgiveness for yourself. And at this last word from the expert witness, the prosecutor collapses to the floor, and the defendant stands up. No longer are you sitting with the rest of the jury. Your experience now is one of looking out through the defendant's eyes. The expert witness looks at you with deeply human understanding, with full and complete acceptance, saying to the court as a whole, this person deserves no further condemnation. This person deserves no further punishment. And now the judge turns and speaks directly to you, bringing finality to these proceedings with the following words. The mark of a healthy human being is the ability to feel emotions of all types. The mark of a healthy human being in society is to feel an appropriate amount of guilt and shame, but only when and only if such may be appropriate, and even then, only within proper measure. And the way we measure guilt and shame is by depth and not by duration. You have certainly felt these emotions deeply enough, perhaps too deeply, but crucially, you have carried these emotions for too long a time, and any further time spent being burdened in this way is not only unwarranted and wrong, but also inappropriate and unhelpful to society as a whole, as no punishment for any crime could or should ever be eternal. This time limit has not only been reached, but it has also very clearly been passed, and there is no benefit whatsoever to any person for you to cloak yourself in this feeling of shame, or for you to continue to carry your burden of guilt for 1 second longer. You may divest yourself now of this cloak of shame, this burden of guilt, and you may now cast them to the floor, for them to remain in this place as you leave now, completely free. The courtroom scene dissolves into nothing, and you find yourself now outside in the light, free, released, unshackled, unburdened, and at peace, with no guilt to carry, uncloaked and weightless, your shoulders soaring, walking easily, freely again, with your friendly presence by your side. And as you walk, each step you take lightens how you feel, each word you hear confirming your release from inappropriate punishment for simply being a human being. And as you walk, your friendly presence speaks. You, like me, like anyone else for that matter, are no angel, but the thing is that none of us could ever be expected to be angels, because of the simple fact that what we are is imperfect human beings. People do deserve punishment when their actions break the laws of their community, yes, but once the punishment is carried out, the crime is spent, gone, and should not affect the person any further in the future. And the same is true for actions which are not in themselves crimes, but are regarded by some as worthy of guilt and shame. The feelings of guilt and shame may have been appropriate responses, but even if they were, these were never meant to be suffered endlessly. That's no more than cruelty. It's inhuman. It's inappropriate. And it's wrong. Caught in the trap of never-ending self-condemnation, believing this was deserved, feeling unforgivable. But having seen the truth that perfect human living was never even possible, making understanding and forgiveness an absolute necessity, crucial, fundamental to a healthy view of self and others living together in society. You're leaving now the island of your social isolation, gladly sailing homeward bound. We're almost home, so turn around and check to see what once was there is gone. Something inside senses that the world has changed. The world is not the way it was before. This deepest part of you, before your face, beyond your name, your inmost self, your very core, now knows. Your guilt, your shame are spent and gone, so no longer can they haunt you anymore. Sense your symbol, sense of self, your inner picture, symbol for your unseen being, now set free, reborn, remade, return, to live and dream and hope again. Sweet salvation lies within, forgiving humans what they do. See now that this must include another human too. That human being no one other than the person that is you. That night is over. The darkness has gone, and daylight now is breaking. Your guilt resolved, your shame dissolved, and you are gladly waking up to live your life in just the way that others do. And just before you go, please know that if this story has helped you, then I'm sure it could help others too. So if you can share this with others, please do. I'd be very grateful. Thank you. And if you haven't yet subscribed, that would be awesome too.